All right, everyone, welcome back to the Insights of All Trades podcast. So I'm doing this intro for the podcast I did recently with my good friend Moustafa Almeky. So in that podcast, honestly, it's probably the most kind of taboo subjects that we have gone into in the podcast thus far, in that my friend Moustafa is an Egyptian, and, kind of no surprise that he practices the Muslim faith. And, we've grown really close to each other through being on the same wrestling team. And over the years, we've got into kind of deconstructing the similarities and differences of the Christian faith versus the Muslim faith. And we thought we could bring a unique conversation to the podcast by showing how you can have an open-minded conversation where you go through all these unique differences and fundamental differences in belief systems without being a jerk to each other and hearing each other out and having a good conversation. So I'm super excited for all of you to give that a listen. For this week's insight, you may have heard that we are kind of getting away from the initial insight segment that we were doing with people sending them in, and we're kind of digging up our own insights through the books we read, podcasts we listen to, etc. So the insight that I have for this episode comes from none other than Tim Ferriss in his books Tools of Titans. He talks about what gives this little tidbit of information, I guess, is when he's typing these books, of which he's had like multiple New York Times bestsellers that are like in 500 plus page range, is that he will often, when he knows he needs to go back and research something, but he's on like a good train of thought and he doesn't want to pause and look it up on Google, he'll type the word TK and then keep going. And the reason he does that is that there's few words in the English language that have within the word the letter T followed by the letter K. So then he can just do, I don't know what it is, the shortcut is on Windows, but on Mac it's like Command F. I'm guessing it's like Control F or something like that on a Windows operating system. So then you can just like bounce around to all the times you type TK and then, sub in the facts that you needed to look up. So I think that could be very helpful when you're typing research papers, or maybe you're crazy enough to be writing a book and you want to circumvent kind of taking a break to look up information. You can just type in TK and look it up later. So anyway, I hope you really enjoy this episode. Adios. Welcome to Insights of All Trades podcast with Nick and Cole. This is where we talk with people we meet along our journeys through medicine, military service, sports, education, and beyond. We hope you enjoy. All right, we are rolling. What's up, everyone? I'm with my homie, Moustafa Almeky.
And I'm with my man, Cole Walters.
So, just to give everyone, a background on you before we get into this semi-planned out topic progression we have. What are you doing here at Wilkes, man?
I'm here at Wilkes to study pre-med and to wrestle. Those are my main two things. As far as wrestling goes, I'm from PA. I live about 15 minutes away, so this is a school that's kind of close to home.
In like Dallas?
Dallas, right? Yep. I live up in Dallas. I went to Dallas High School, if any of you guys know that. Woo woo. But I wrestle 197, and I love what I'm doing, and this is my co-leader on the team, Cole. So.
And you're ranked in the country now, right?
Yeah, I was listed in the first D3 as an honorable mention, so that's pretty cool. Being top 20 is definitely something cool going into the season. Gives you a little bit more confidence. It's a bit of a boost. It's definitely really far from where I was. I was not a good wrestler whatsoever. And honestly, it just goes to show to anyone in any aspect of life, if you work hard, you're going to achieve what you want to get.
I agree completely. And I feel like it's well known among our team that you're like by far the most improved wrestler that probably Wilkes Wrestling has seen in a long time, to go from how was your freshman year at Wilkes?
6-21, and before that was even worse. In high school, my total record was 20-54. I wasn't even thought about for being recruited, but I did want to wrestle, and I know Coach said, if you want to work hard, you want to care about your teammates, you're welcome on the team. And I came in, and I wasn't great at the whole technique thing, but I busted my butt, and things worked out for me. So,
and I think that speaks to how good of a Coach Schlager is.
Yeah.
he will have anyone on the team as long as they're willing to grind.
Exactly.
And anyway, so you went from that to where you are now and, ranked in the country, which is insane. What got you into wrestling in the first place?
So it's a funny story. I was in 7th grade, and I was a basketball player. And after basketball, we finished around 5. My mom was late to pick me up. This was an actual occurrence. My parents are both very busy. So
both doctors, correct?
Yeah. And she was a little bit late to pick me up. And then wrestling finished practice at 5:30. And the wrestling coach, Coach Jerry O'Gurkis, God bless him, still know him. He still coaches up at the high school now. And he said, "Hey, how much do you weigh?" And I was like, I don't know. I was like a small little kid, and I was not quite as tall back then. So
yeah. For those not watching the video, Moustafa is, I don't know, 6'5", something,
6'6",
something ridiculous.
Yeah, not your average wrestler.
So of course you thought basketball was initially your calling.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So he's like, "How much do you weigh?" I'm like, "I'm not sure." He goes, "You ever watch a wrestling meet?" And I'm like, "I have no idea what a meet is." So he goes, "Oh, come in the office for a second." I walk in. He goes, "Well, strip down." And I'm like, "Excuse me?"
What's up, sir?
What's up, sir? So I proceeded to strip down, and then I get on the scale, and I was 104.3, and they're missing a 105-pounder. Hence the start of Moustafa's wrestling career.
What grade did he say that was?
7th.
Dude, so I have a kind of similar story that I'm 99% certain I did not share on the podcast. So I wrestled in elementary school, kind of just because my dad wanted to get me into it. And it was fun for a little, and I quit before I even had a junior high season, which is when it kind of gets serious in youth wrestling. But when I was a freshman in high school, I got a phone call from one of the other wrestlers' parents, and he was like, "Hey, we don't have a 106-pounder. I know you used to wrestle in elementary school, and you're athletic. Could you fill the spot?" And I was naturally weighing 106 pounds. I was really, really tiny as a freshman in high school. And, my ego was I would like to have a starting spot on any varsity sport as a freshman. Girls are going to love me if I'm a starting wrestler at 106. I was and I got murdered the entire year. I'm pretty sure my freshman record is something 4-17 or 18. I got ran over. But for some reason, I fell in love with it. And I'm guessing something happened similar to you.
Yep. So 7th and 8th grade, I didn't really like wrestling because I wasn't very good. And the team wasn't very kind to me. Being a young Arabic ginger in America back in the 2010s wasn't the best thing. But I wasn't a huge really favored, and I was just I guess they're going to think I'm a baby if I don't keep coming back. So I just kept coming back. And then, honestly, I got up to the high school level, and I got to this point where it was I started winning a little bit. Winning a little bit meant winning one match. I won one match. I went 4-12 that year, 3 forfeits and 1 actual win. And I met my one friend, Robbie, who actually, coincidentally, I just met him last night at Angelo's.
Oh, nice.
I just talked to him. He's like, "Wow, I remember that one time when he wanted to quit." And I was in 10th grade, and I was saying, "I'm going to quit wrestling." And I was at the preseason practice, wasn't really into it. And they were like, "Yeah, Moustafa, you suck. I bet this new kid could beat you." So I was mad, and me and him wrestled live in front of everyone, to prove who would be who. And I remember I just headlocked him and pinned him, and he was like, and everyone was like, "Oh, damn, I guess Moustafa doesn't know how to wrestle." And after he was like, "Damn, man, you're pretty good." And I was like, "Not really," but he really took a liking to me, and he recognized that I worked hard, and me and him became really good partners in the room and really good friends, and we just built off each other. And honestly, that's what kept me in the sport was him. So if that single occurrence hadn't happened, honestly, I don't know if I would be where I am today with wrestling or with anything in general, because who knows if I would have came to Wilkes, you know what I mean? So it's kind of crazy just to think back and think that something small like that had such a big impact on me. And actually, Robbie ended up quitting the year after that. He wasn't very good, but he was just a good kid. He had different focuses, and so.
Dude, props to you for sticking it out on a team that was not only not encouraging you, but actively discouraging you to quit the team. I don't feel like I had exactly that, but I also didn't feel like I was part of the team in high school for my freshman and sophomore year, in that I was so much worse than what was a pretty good high school wrestling team. And there was a couple kids on the team that I was really tight with, but, I was clearly known as the weak link. And they weren't, rubbing that in my face, but I knew and they knew that I was the weak link on the team. And thankfully, the person that got me, I guess, more in love with wrestling and obsessed with improving myself is Rusty Bites, who's the father of, if you know, Zach and Seth Bites that wrestled at Penn State, and Derek Bites, who competed at Messiah.
Okay.
Rusty, pulled it. Well, actually, he pulled us aside one day, myself and my friend Ty Lin, who, we were 106 and 113, training partners. This motion light just went off. If you aren't
this
watching,
is going to happen a few times.
And I'll just walk around the side. And
there we go.
if you aren't watching the video and you're wondering what happens every 15 minutes when conversation cuts out, we found a room with a motion light, and the backdrop is sick, and we have a nice private room to talk, but unfortunately, I did not realize until after I set up that there's a motion light that will go off every 15 minutes, so that it gives us quite the interesting obstacle for this podcast. But we're willing to tackle it.
Yeah, we're pushing through it.
So Rusty pulled Tylen and I aside, and he was like, hey, do you want to come to the Penn State wrestling match with me this weekend? That's when Zach and Seth were there, so they just have free tickets every weekend. And we were like, sure. So we went along, and on the way to the match at State College, he was like, hey, I mean this wholeheartedly. He has raised 3 sons that are freakishly good at wrestling.
Yeah.
And he was like, I see something in you guys that I think you see in yourself, and I see you guys grind it out every single day, and I know that you're not content with where you're at. And if you want me to, I'm willing to kind of take you guys under my wing and train you. He's like, not just saying that he'll coach us, but he's willing to drive us wherever in the state and take us wherever to help get us better. And we were thrilled at that. That's all we wanted. And that's when I started training every single day and getting into the sport of wrestling. Yeah. So, dang.
It became a really, really intense love. And I remember I made it to regionals my senior year. I only ever placed at 2 tournaments. It was my senior year. I placed at the conference tournament and the district tournament to make it to regionals. And then I went 0-2. And I remember after my last dual meet in high school, I cried hysterically on the bus ride back from Western Wayne.
Dude, same.
Shout out Morgan Fuller. I don't know. Sure, the people.
Morgan went to Western Wayne.
So, and then after my last match, I just laid back and I had a rough night because I didn't want that to be the last time I wrestled. And I remember I was talking to my high school coach, and he was saying, I'm telling him I'm looking at Wilkes, Kutztown, whatnot. I just want to go to school, but the Wilkes coach is a nice guy. I remember Slogger was very open and offered me a visit, and it seemed very official. And that was something that the only time that happened to me, and nobody else was reaching out to me. And I was like, wow, I'm really, really honored by this. So he said, Moustafa, honestly, just go to school, because if I was a coach and I saw how I was, I worked hard, but I was definitely not at the level that could ever compete at a college level. And he saw that. He's like, he doesn't want me to go and waste my time. And the team was very, very loaded when I was in high school. We had a really good team. I'm pretty sure the year before, so my senior year, Wilkes must have been ranked number 6 in the country.
That was my sophomore year, I believe, and I think
or even freshman year. I'll just play it again.
I'm not sure. Dang.
Giuseppe Ray, Grossman. We had really good guys.
Yeah. That was my sophomore year, and we went I don't know, maybe 20-3. I'm probably not exactly right, but
no, I think that's exactly right.
we were solid, for sure.
So, and he saw the guys like Chris Krawchuk and all those national runner-ups, DeTolo, people like Feldman, those guys wrestling on the team, and he knew what level they were at. He's like, people that wrestle at Wilkes are placed very high in state, and I went 0-2 at regionals. So you just go to school, and I was like, I think I'm going to wrestle, right? So I didn't really know if I was going to, and I went and I met with Coach. And I remember I was like, honestly, Coach, I'm not that great, but I'm really good at not getting pinned. And we mention that all the time now. Whenever Coach is on visits with new recruits, he's like, Well, this guy came a long way. Remember when he was on his visit, he told me he was really good at not getting pinned. So I'm sure it's not what you want to be telling a wrestling coach when you're getting recruited. But
that turned out to be a good sales pitch.
There you go. So that was my sales pitch. I was pretty good at not getting pinned. So I came and I just didn't know if Wilkes was for me. Within 2 weeks, I knew this was the perfect spot, and I didn't want to go or be anywhere else. And I was so glad that I stayed close to home. And because we're really family-centered, which really ties into a lot of the demographic about their religion and whatnot. So I was really glad that I came to Wilkes, and it did a lot of huge things for me. I went 6-21, like I said, as a freshman, but Coach never excluded me from anything or treated me any differently because I was not as good as everyone else. You know what I mean? And I always had this hunger to be better. So even if I was getting my butt kicked during live, when we were in the green room meaning the intense conditioning, which tests your mental strength.
Yeah,
for those of you who don't know, mental, physical,
spiritual,
it's pretty intense. But I would go hard, and because all that takes is just wanting to get it done. You know, sometimes in wrestling, wanting to get it done isn't everything. It's a huge part of it. You have to grow a lot, and you have to have a lot of strength, technique, mat sense, mat awareness. But I wanted to get it done, and I think that's really why I came a long way. And in the off season, just knowing that after having a season like that and being in contact with the coaches, and the coaches coming in with a kid who went 6-21 on their team, coming in the off season almost every single day to wrestle and coach that individual, like just one-on-one, speaks a lot to the program and speaks a lot to Coach Lawrence and Coach Feldman. And I really don't know where I'd be without them. And Coach always tells me, he goes, well, it was your hard work. I said, yeah, but if it wasn't this program, you know, I needed somewhere to put the hard work into. And I think that the program really does a lot of good things. I was also really light as a freshman. I gained about 25 pounds from year to year, from freshman year to sophomore year. That was a huge, huge jump. And honestly, I didn't even know I got better until I started wrestling. We noticed the difference in my wrestling, and I just started winning. It was different. I think I ended with like a 24-9-ish record, and I was beating I beat the kid who was round of 12 at Nationals the year before, a couple other pretty honorable mention and contender kids in the country that I before never had any chance with. So it was just a huge turnaround, a huge jump, and I can't even tell you what it was, but I think a lot of growth and a lot of coaching went into it.
Dude, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I feel like even with all the improvement you made, why you're seen as like a leader on our team today and why you're a captain on our team today is not just because of wrestling performance, and in fact is probably more so because of that effort you put in year round, and also just who you are as a leader, always encouraging people on our team. And I have, kind of prescribed that narrative to you. I don't know if you feel the same way.
No, I definitely do, and I think I always tell this, and people think it's a joke, and then especially with the freshmen coming in, and this year, as you said, you and I both stepped into these more leadership positions, and I would always kind of joke, kind of not joke, and say I'm not that good at wrestling.
I feel the exact same.
I'm not that good at wrestling. I tell these guys this isn't I'm telling you, success isn't going to come from being talented. If you're talented and you think you're going to get by, and you think this is just, I hear a lot this is D3, how hard could it be? And
yeah,
it can be really hard. So I think you're 100% correct. And I think just when Coach was talking to us the other night, and he said, this is why I brought Cole in to be a leader. And I was like, we truly needed someone like you on the team. And I think Coach thought the same thing with me, is just, and I don't mean to be talking about myself in a high way, but in the most modest way, I think from the effort I put in and the hard work and the, I'm completely dedicated to the sport and the program. And I think that's what Coach saw more than just my wrestling ability, that really put myself as a leader on the team. You know what I mean? So I think you're definitely right about that.
And in some ways, maybe this is my own bias because we're kind of in a similar position with this. I think in many ways, at least from people on the outside of wrestling looking in, it's more impressive to cultivate this leadership position in a team if you're not really the best performer on the team. we can both think of probably 2 to 3 wrestlers on the team that
Yeah.
I would say are much better technically than us,
much more
and much more consistent on a big performance stage than us. But because of this character we cultivated along the way, we stepped into the role as captains on the team.
Exactly.
And it's not because of or natural talent or anything
outstanding,
like that.
Exactly. Just like in years before, there was always at least 1 or 2 persons on the team that were really good, really good. Like my freshman year, we had Grossman, Josh. Like there was no question. Like these guys were superior to everyone else on the team. Or last year, like Rack, Ritter, Ashton. These guys are Tommy. Like just really, really good wrestlers. And this year, there are definitely wrestlers, like you said, there. I could think of 2, 3, or 4 maybe that are better than you and I at wrestling. But it definitely is from that effort that we put in, and the kind of when you are a leader, you want someone to look up to you and emulate what you're doing. And I don't think just winning is enough. Do you know what I mean? So I think if you're watching a leader who is going out there and giving 100% on the mat every single time, win or lose, watching a leader who in practice doesn't dog it, to use
do you think it's just effort though? Because I think it's more than that.
Effort and outside of wrestling conduct, 100%.
So here's what I would have put in addition to effort, because I agree that like grit is super important. But there's a couple things that I think are hard to articulate but kind of set us apart. So for example, you could have someone that works really, really hard, but also while they're working hard, they're complaining about it, or they're pushing the blame, or they feel like the hard work they're doing is punishment, something like that.
Yeah.
And I think to go beyond, not only are you putting in effort, you're grateful for the hard work that you're doing. You are not complaining about it. In fact, you're like asking for more. Like you're begging to struggle. So there's that. And there's also there's other nuances to leadership. Like, for example, I kind of stole this verbiage from Tom Bilyeu. And he talks about how people who are good leaders and successful in whatever it is in their field have the ability to hold conflicting ideas in their head, and they know when to exercise each one. So like, for example, as a good leader on the team, you need to know when to push someone on the team. What you need to do is encourage them and be like, dude, I know that this is rough right now, but I believe in you. I believe in your talent. I want you to see in you what I see in you. So sometimes you have to go that route. But sometimes you have to exercise this conflicting idea where what you know that person needs is like, dude, let's go. You are dogging it right now. I know you are not giving your best effort. So like what I also think makes good leaders is being able to exercise those conflicting ideas in any situation.
Just being aware, I think, definitely plays a huge part in it. And as well as that's just being cognizant of that is huge. And I think you definitely emulate that really, really well. And you, the way you portray that and the way you explain it to me, I definitely see that in you. And I definitely understand. I've used both techniques, throughout the year.
Yeah, it depends on the person. It also depends
on the situation.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's just, like you said, it's situational, and just knowing when to entertain each one is huge and a big part of it, because sometimes what the person needs, and it's different from person to person, Sometimes people, when you get to know people, and being a good leader is also knowing your team, right? Taking the initiative to know who you're dealing with, not just kind of eyes narrow, focused on the road of your own path, but caring about how the team does as a whole. It's a huge part of being a leader. So when you know that, you know what every person needs, and you can help them reach their needs, even if you're not completely dedicated to them, but at least part of your dedication is to, make sure that they're doing the right things, make sure that they're doing within reason, within what you can do, within what you can control, and encourage them, keep doing the right things, keep doing what you're doing, or change what you're doing if what you're doing isn't correct. And sometimes from person to person, it's a little bit different to talk to people depending on who they are. And I think it's really important to get to know them and to know who needs what. And I think that here we go. You and I do a pretty good job of that. And another thing that I think Coach kind of sees in us as leaders is, outside of wrestling, also, we are kind of people that you definitely want to follow. I mean, you winning last year's Wendell Award. For those of you who don't know, the Wendell Award is the highest male GPA at Wilkes University. And Cole won that last year after his 4 years, and then he does like 2 more for pharmacy. So after his P1 and P2 year, he won the Wendell Award, which is a huge honor, and
Thank you.
honestly shows so much more than being smart, but shows intense hard work and intense dedication. You really can't be the Wendell Award winner if you're not 100% into it and doing something. I don't even want to say the word different because it doesn't do it justice.
And just to add on, or not to add on, but to like complement the program that Coach Schlager has made even more. What's really insane is like, man, I don't know how to word this because I don't want to be guilty of putting myself on a pedestal.
No,
but
go for it.
but it's not often that you see an athlete win the Wendell Award because they're two very demanding things: taking school very seriously and taking
athletics.
Very seriously. And we had Josh Evans, another wrestler, now helping coach at Wilkes. He graduated the year before I had won the award, and he's a trauma nurse now. So he was in nursing, and while he was wrestling, who is a much better wrestler than me, by the way, he won the Wendell Award as a Wilkes wrestler. It is insane that 2 years in a row, Wilkes wrestlers
won the Wendell Award. And it's honestly huge, speaking volumes about the program. We speak to alumni all the time. They come to the matches, and they said one thing that was different was, excuse my language, but Wilkes has always been kicking ass, but Wilkes didn't always have these good grades. We spoke with Dan Cardell, who is the chairman of the board of trustees here at Wilkes University. He's really successful man, and he came and talked to our team. We're very thankful for his time, actually.
Yeah, I didn't realize he had run like a sub 4-hour marathon
in every state in America.
It's ridiculous.
He was the vice president, I believe, of Bank of America. He does a lot of work with investments, and he really offered a lot of help to anybody interested in business and finance because obviously he has a lot of insight on the.
He's all right.
He's all right. When you got about over 100 million to your name, you're doing pretty okay. So we're really glad that he came in and talked to us, and he said one of the things in this program today that wasn't in the program before was the grades. We, as a team, finished, I believe, 14th in the country overall for team GPAs with a 3.586, which is, I think, phenomenal.
Yeah,
it's not a 4.0, but for athletes to generate that cumulative GPA of a 3.586 is a really good GPA. Like, people come into school hoping for a 3.0, hoping for a 2.0. A lot of times you see these D1 teams like, we're proud of our 2.8, 2.9. Like, we can really
and that's not to say that we think GPA is everything.
It's all about, and the thing is, like, I think we see so much success because of how much Coach cares about our grades and how much he cares about the effort we put in. And Coach always says, not every guy's a 4.0 guy. He said, as long as you're reaching your ceiling and pushing it, that's what matters.
And he applies that same thing to us.
So we're wrestling. And honestly, that is a great coaching strategy. And he says that because I'm always like with him with the recruits, and he says that to all the recruits. He says to the parents, he says, every kid is different. Not every kid is going to be a Cole Walters. Not every kid is going to be a Josh Evans. But if your ceiling is you are studying and doing everything you possibly can to succeed in your coursework, and you get a 3.2, then like that is amazing. And you get a 2.5, then that is what it is. That's your ceiling, and you're pushing your limits, and you're trying to do everything you can. You're going 100%. You're giving everything you have to. And he says the same thing on the mat. Before we wrestle, during we wrestle, after we wrestle, he says, I don't care if we win or lose. He loves to win. He's one of the most competitive guys I've met, and I've met myself. Right? So
he cares that you don't cut corners and that you're just trying to be the best version of yourself
that you can and push your limits. Honestly, then it's amazing to see that when you do that, he really does appreciate that, and he notices it and definitely takes it into mind. And like, just to see, honestly, like, one of the best things is I wasn't the best wrestler. I'm still not amazing at wrestling, but he saw the effort I put in. He sees that I believe for myself. I believe I'm cutting corners, and I'm just trying to improve every day. And he sees that, and it's one of the main things about improvement is this is one of the faults I believe in humanity actually, is we always try to look for approval from other people. But at the same time, sometimes it's good.
I'm also crazy guilty of that.
Yeah. So, and I think every human is. It's just a human thing. You want to see some kind of approval. And honestly, Coach gives you that. Like he recognizes those who work hard. He does, and it's a huge part. And when you get that approval, even though you shouldn't need it, it kind of boosts you to want to do more. You know what I mean? So he really recognizes that, and he uses that in his athletics and his schoolwork. And I believe that's what got us that kind of GPA. Guys pushing their hardest and doing what they can in the room, doing what they can in the classroom, and succeeding in both places. And we always say this, usually if you're doing good in one, you're doing good in the other. I have not seen a wrestler, at least on Wilkes or on my high school team, that was a really good wrestler and didn't have great grades, right? Especially in college.
Yeah.
Usually when they're doing good at wrestling, they're making the right life choices too. Because if you're a hard worker, you're a hard worker across the board. At least I believe that. If you're cutting corners in class, chances are you're cutting corners in the room as well. So definitely a great program. We've spoken like a lot about that.
I agree. Yeah. So we can flip the script a little bit.
Let's flip it.
And I'm going to take us back to something you said you thought one of the biggest faults of humanity is that we seek approval of others. And you and I both kind of seek an alternative to that, and that alternative is our faiths. However, we have different faiths. So I am a Christian and you are a Muslim, and we have had these deep conversations before, obviously not on camera.
Yeah.
Kind of picking and pulling these similarities and differences in our faiths. But I think that, I'll kind of put this on the table before we get into it. I kind of have an agenda in bringing this up, in that I think it's important for people to see not only is there an alternative to, seeking approval by others, and also just all the other, we'll say, suffering in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from that, I have an agenda in bringing this up, and I think it's important for people to see that people with two conflicting belief systems can be best friends. And not only that, but beyond that, you can have a conversation, and instead of just listening to someone, just long enough to form a rebuttal and then bash them back in their face. And you're essentially not even listening to them. You're just looking through the lens of your own belief system, and you don't care at all what they say. You only want to be proven right.
Yeah.
I know that we can show people there's another way to have these conversations.
Yeah, 100%.
So with that being said, I'm sure the Insights of All Trades podcast listener demographic is not super familiar on Islam and what it entails. Can you kind of just go through how you would explain Islam to someone that's a non-believer and wants to learn more about it?
All right. This could take 3 days, but I'm going to try and do it and compile it in a nice little segment here. The word Islam, or Islam with the Arabic accent, means peace, right? So I think that is really the basis of our religion, is peace. And we have fundamentals. The fundamental and the number one thing that comes above all is we believe in God, and we believe that God has his prophets and that Mohammed is a prophet of God. So when you're coming into the Islamic religion and you want to proclaim your faith, the statement that you say is, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadun Rasulullah, which literally translates to, there is no God but God. Like it's not a polytheist religion, monotheist religion, right? And what Muhammad Rasulullah means, and Muhammad is a prophet of God. So that is really the basis of our religion. We have 5 pillars of Islam: Hajj, Saum, Zakat, Salah, right? And then Fitr. So you kind of we base.
What do those mean?
I'm gonna go over that. So Hajj is the pilgrimage to Saudi Arabia. right? For those of you who don't know, there's a mosque called the Kaaba in Saudi Arabia, and that is, we as Muslims pray towards one direction. We pray 5 times a day, and that direction is towards the Kaaba in Saudi Arabia, in Mecca, right? I'm sure many of you have heard the Mecca, and it's kind of used as a term as the Mecca of, right? So you might be familiar with that term. So one of the main pillars of Islam is doing Hajj. We say is like for those who are able to financially, physically, health-wise, whatever it is, mental-wise, if you are able to do pilgrimage, then do pilgrimage. That's one of the main pillars of Islam. Prayer is like another thing that is like one of those above all things. And as Muslims, we pray 5 times a day, 5 prayers: Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha. They're at different times of the day, and the cool part is every single day it's at a different time. So it kind of goes by. So in winter, the sun sets a little bit earlier, so the prayer time's a little bit earlier. And in the summer, the sun sets a little bit later, so the prayer time's a little bit later. So Fajr in the summer could be something like 3:30 in the morning, and Fajr right now could be something like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. And in the dead of winter, it's about 7 o'clock. And then that's kind of how it's compiled. So it's 5 throughout the day, 1 usually at the end of the day. In the summer, the last one's usually at 10 p.m. Right now, the last one's at 6 p.m. So it's different throughout the whole entire year. And you just gotta get those prayers done. And essentially, you do the same thing in each prayer. There's not a prayer where you don't do something specific in the prayer based off what it is, except for the first prayer is, I'm going to say this and I'll probably explain it later, 2 units. The second prayer is 4 units. Third prayer is 4 units. The fourth prayer is 3 units, and the fifth prayer is 4 units again. So it's 2, 4, 4, 3, 4. And by units, I mean we are standing, and then we go into a position that's called ruku'ah, and then we go into a position that's called sujood, which is where our head is on the ground. You may have seen pictures of Muslims prostrating on the ground. And going through those positions is 1 unit, or we call a rak'ah. So that's how many there is each one. But essentially, we do the same thing. We have things that we say. Basically, what it is, we recite Al-Fatiha, which is one of the surahs and the chapters in the Quran, and then we recite a short or long chapter right after that, and then proceed with the rest of the prayer. So it's just like a routine thing that we do every day, and it's kind of cool how it's spaced out throughout the day. That way, you always return to your faith. No matter how busy your day is, you always have time. You wake up, the first thing you do is you make wudu, which is cleansing yourself before you pray, and you pray. That's the first thing you do. After class, you come back to your room, or you go back to a prayer room, whatever, and you pray. You go, you have lunch, you have whatever you do, and then you pray. You pray again, and then you pray before you sleep. So it kind of keeps you attached to the faith. It keeps you close to God, and it keeps you remembering God, because I think that's really, really important thing. So we went over Hajj and prayer. The third thing is Sawm. So
before we get into Sawm, real quick, I don't want to derail you, but I really don't want to lose this. Okay. Just because I didn't even think about like the comparison of our prayer life. So, okay, couple things. Are you only usually praying then those 5 times a day because like you kind of know those are your set times of prayer, as opposed to say praying before meals, or not only just praying before meals, like
praying in times of hardship?
Yeah, maybe you're in a car ride and you just like think of like you just start praying or something like that. Yeah. I don't know, but do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, exactly. I know exactly what you're asking. Okay, so these are different. Like these are prayers that we do that kind of get us back to our faith. There's also something called dua, which is called, I guess in Arabic it can translate to supplication, and that is different. That is like praying. It's also praying, but it's asking God for something, right? Or you can just say words such as Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, like saying like thank God, like God forgive me, that kind of thing. That could also be as remembering God. Or if I'm going through a hard time, where my mom is really sick, and I want to pray to God to help heal my mom, right? That is a different kind of prayer. Like it's called dua, where like you raise your hands and you like literally ask God for what you want, but not like you wouldn't be talking like informally.
Yeah.
There's certain things that you would say, like we have 99 names for God, like the most merciful, the most kind, the most generous, and like you use some of these names, and then you ask what you want, like Allahumma shfiha, like, oh God, like give her health, Allahumma tawwal amraha, like God make her life like longer, God heal her ailments, God heal all Muslims. And that's different. Like you're like supplicating to God, you're asking for whatever it is you need in life, and that's something different. That isn't really, it's not a basis. Like I can go through days without making dua at all, and then there's days where you can make a lot of dua. So it's just it depends.
Is that part of your like set 5 prayers then, that you would incorporate it into those that like?
No, so like it's hard to explain. The 5
prayers, are they mainly more of like a worship?
Worship, exactly. That's the perfect way to explain it. Let me just explain what like a normal one of the 5 prayers is really quick.
Okay.
So you read a chapter, like I said, Al-Fatiha, and then you read a short chapter, and then you say Allahu Akbar. You go down, and then you say 3 Subhanallah wa bihamdih. I'm sorry. You just say 3 things. Subhanallah, then you say Allahu liman hamidah, and then you go down. You're prostrating on the ground. Subhanallah, Subhanallah, Subhanallah.
What is that you're saying?
Subhanallah is, I don't know what Subhan means, but it's like look at like my God the highest, right? Or Subhanallah al-Azim means look at my God the greatest. And Azim is, Azama is something that's really great, or something that has a lot of, obviously not literal weight, but like metaphorical or spiritual weight, like an Azim, like something that's like way like above our heads, right? So you're just like worshiping God, right? And then we come back up, and then you go back down, Subhanallah, come back up again, and that was 1 unit. So then you just do that. If it's the morning prayer, you do that twice, and that's your prayer. You're just worshiping God, right? Yeah. Like you're not like asking for anything specific. There's just things that like we are taught to say, right? Like it's not like.
Dude, that's interesting.
I want to say like you don't go off the script kind of thing. You know what I mean?
So as a Christian, and first I want to just put this out there. Oh man, I know this is going to come up later because in many ways, I'm not even going to derail this. I'll say what I wanted to say, which is I don't follow a script. Of course, Christians have the Lord's Prayer that they have, but that's really, especially throughout like Protestant, non-Catholic faiths, you're often not going by a script, but instead, whatever it is that you want to talk to God about, and maybe it's just me and I don't know where I cultivated this belief from, but when I talk to God, I want to be talking to God not only as an omniscient creator, but also as my friend. And as such, when I pray as if I'm talking to a friend. So just going into it for the sake of, being vulnerable, what my prayer usually looks like, which is especially my consistently longest prayer of the day, is right when I wake up in the morning. I'll pray for anywhere from like maybe 3 to 10 minutes. And this is like kind of just part of my morning routine where I'll pray, I'll go through these segments of gratitude where I'll think of like 3 people or things or experiences that I'm grateful for. I will just kind of like let that sink in, and then I'll like kind of meditate and focus and like try to really quiet my mind. And then after I do that, I'll just look at my schedule for the day. Anyway, so as part of that morning routine, I'll pray. And when I pray, it might look something like this. Like, dear God, thank you for like another morning that I'm waking up. I'm so grateful to be here, and I know that I don't always have the best attitude with some of these struggles and stuff that come up, but like I will just express this gratitude that I have, because really I am grateful for this life that God has given me. And then on top of that, I'll make these requests for either things that I'm struggling with or things that I know that they're struggling with and need help with. It may mean something like praying for healing with cancer. It may mean I know I have a friend going through like a relationship problem and I want to pray for him, or maybe me praying for some sort of like health problems that I'm experiencing, and I'll make those sorts of requests and talk about it with God, and also just continuously remind myself by thanking God that I'm grateful for everything in this life, not just darn light going off. Not just the good times, but the things that I perceive as struggles that turn out to be advantages later. And so there's really no script for me, if that makes sense.
So that's kind of where the dua is. What I think I was explaining, supplication. That's what that sounds like to me. Is the same thing that you're explaining. We say in dua. So like people make dua every day. People make dua multiple times a day. People make dua maybe once a week. People might make dua a lot more in the month of Ramadan, right? So what you're explaining right now is kind of like different from we have the 5 main prayers of the day, but we don't usually do that. You could technically, I could really, as you can tell, obviously all religions go very, 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 very deep, and I can explain to you multiple different things, and you technically can make dua while praying, but what you do is you just pray, right? But the dua is what you're talking about, where it's kind of off the script. Like you're not made to say anything. This is just what you want. Like whether it's just thanking God for what you have, what He's given you, like asking Him, like so humbly for more, and honestly just thinking about all the blessings that you have, and asking someone, like you said, about to help cure cancer or whatever that may be, or just to think about wow, I'm so thankful that God has given me the opportunity to wake up, go to class, go to practice, do this, and think about all this stuff. That is more dua than it is our main prayers. And I think that's kind of what differs us from some religions. You know what I mean? Where it's we have this 5 prayer a day type thing, and other religions might pray, but it doesn't look like that. It looks like what is on that. Every person's prayer looks different. But for Islam, every single person's prayer looks relatively the same. So they say the one chapter, like I said, you're standing, you say the same chapter everyone says, and everyone says a different chapter afterwards. Which usually the chapter that you say afterwards doesn't have relevance to something that you want. You're just reciting something beautiful from the Quran that you know from memory, right? So as a young Muslim, you usually memorize a lot of the Quran. Some people memorize the whole thing. It's about 604 pages, I want to say. There's 114 chapters and 30 subsets in it. So you go by learning the chapters, and then you finish a subset, and then you learn the next chapters, and you finish a subset. So you have the Quran in your memory, and you're always reading it, always reciting it, that kind of thing. And it really is beautiful. And you don't just recite it as talking, but you recite it as, I don't know if you ever heard Quran being read. Well, it's really is something beautiful. People equate it to singing, but it's not. It's really elegant. And
is there different authors for the?
That's the same one Quran all the way through. No matter where.
Is there an attributed author
to the Quran?
Yeah.
God.
Okay, so I'll contrast this then real quick then with Christian scripture, which is that you have these chapters both within the Old Testament and the New Testament with different authors attributed to each chapter. And it's not that, it is, this tenet that they are all God-inspired.
Yeah.
And that it's God working through that person is maybe an easier way for me to word it.
So the way it is God would make revelations to Prophet Mohammed. So and the Quran was revealed completely in the month of Ramadan, but he would make these revelations of verses to Prophet Muhammad. Prophet Muhammad was actually illiterate, so he couldn't read or write. So him being a prophet, he would just teach these teachings in the verses that he got from God, or from God's angel, Gabriel. I'm sure Jibreel we call him, but I'm sure you guys have in a similar figure in your religion. And he would reveal these verses to Prophet Muhammad, and people would write like the verses down, and it was compiled into a book that is the Quran.
Yeah.
Right? So that's how that came. Like
for a lot of the New Testament scripture, though, it's not that it was communicated through an angel. Mm-hmm. Is that how you're wording it? Like that it was...
God revealed the book to Prophet Muhammad, but not all at once. Like he would reveal verses at a time, right? Like just certain verses or certain chapters. Prophet Muhammad would go down to his people, teach these verses. They would be written down, and that's how the book was compiled.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Maybe. So are you saying when you brought up the angel,
so God will communicate, like there's a cave called Cave Hira. You can actually visit it, and Prophet Muhammad would go up there and meditate very often, and the angel Gabriel or Jibreel would come down and like see him there and reveal the verses that God is giving to him.
Okay,
right.
I understand. So to contrast that then with writings of specifically the New Testament that is, really defining the Christian faith, it's people that are, experiencing life at the same time as Jesus, and most of which are like these disciples of Jesus, mm-hmm. and are, an informal way to word it would be that it's like his best friends that are with him all the time, writing out these experiences that they have and recording the dialogue and the miracles performed and the struggles, really just the whole entire journey. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's not quite the exact same. Of course, you get into like Revelations, which is the last chapter in the New Testament, where it's like, it's not that, it's more similar. And I'm blanking and doing a disservice to my fellow Christians by not being able to correctly attribute the author off the top of my head. But it was revealed to him in like a dreamlike state from what I understand.
Okay. So like a
vision.
Yeah. I didn't know that. And is that like when you have like the names like here verses like where it says Luke or Matthew's?
Right. So those are the Gospels. That's what kicks off the New Testament. It's like Matthew, Mark, Luke, John.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
So that's like the authors.
Yeah. So there's no like authors. It's all like the Word of God in the Quran. And each chapter kind of has a story or something that it's talking about. There are really small chapters. It goes from the biggest to the smallest. Actually, it's arranged.
Oh.
Yeah. So the 30th juz or subset, juz amma, and it's not in perfect order. Like it's like generally smaller on this. Like this in the 30th chapter and the first chapter. The first chapter is 2.5 subsets. It's great. So in
the first chapter, is it going over like beliefs of creation?
It's called Surah Al-Baqarah, which is literally Al-Baqarah is the cow. So there's a story in Surah Al-Baqarah about when God told the people, he said, "Idbahu Baqarah," like slaughter a cow, and they kept asking like, well, what kind of cow? What color cow? What about this? What about that? And like, just kind of teaching like how much easier it would have been. Don't question so much and just believe in the faith. Like if he said just slaughter a cow, how much easier would it have been if you just went and slaughtered a cow, rather than if you just keep asking like, ma launaha, and what is its color, what should it look like, what gender, like all these different kinds of things that make it harder and harder and harder on you. You know what I mean? So it's like that's one of the stories that's in Surah Al-Baqarah. That is like one of the many, many things that are in the chapter.
So it's like kind of a parable. I guess now that I'm kind of trying to think through it, a lot of these are parables then that Muhammad, this from what you believe then is that Muhammad is writing down these kind of stories to illustrate the belief system of Islam? Or is it like believed to be that was an actual thing that happened?
It was believed to be that was actually, and it's not just Muhammad. Like this is like Prophet Moses, Prophet Jesus. We also believe in Jesus. I don't know, like many people like kind of had like discrepancy about that, but we do believe in like Jesus.
I remember learning that my freshman year of college, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, so we like have this complete agreement upon Jesus' existence.
Oh yeah. So we believe in Jesus and Moses and Prophet Abraham, and so these teachings were all brought down onto Prophet Muhammad, and he didn't write them himself. Like I said, he was illiterate, so like he would teach them to his people, and they were written down and compiled into the book that is the Quran. So each surah, like there's Surah Musa, where it's like the chapter of Moses, right? But you also hear stories about Moses through other chapters in the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a lot of times the name doesn't actually like it. Sometimes it's directly related to just the story that's within. But like with Surah Al-Baqarah, the cow, like it's a very, 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 very long chapter with many, 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 many pages, and it talks about many, many things that are not just the story of the cow, right? Like, I got you. There we go.
That pesky light. Okay.
Yeah. So it's different, and it'll just go through a lot of teachings and a lot of different stories, or about like everything that you need to know about the Muslim religion and what we believe. If you ever have a question or you don't know, what I find amazing and fascinating about the religion is that you will find it in the Quran. Like everything, from head to toe. Like if I'm getting married, right? And I don't know exactly like what the Muslim way to do that is, or how do I go about it, you find that in the Quran. Or we also have this thing called a seerah. Seerah is literally everything about Prophet Muhammad's life, and we see him as the most perfect Muslim, and everything that he did we can emulate. Anything that he did is called sunnah, and if you do that just like he did, it's kind of, I don't want to like, with no disrespect obviously to religion, it's kind of looked at as like extra credit, right? So if you emulate something that he did, so like after the morning or before the morning prayer, he would just pray 2 extra units, and that's called sunnah. Like he would do that, so he, peace be upon him, would do that, so we do that. We emulate him. This isn't something that you need to do. The fard, which is what is ordained on you, is the 5 prayers. But if you do that, it's extra like good deeds. It's something good because you're emulating like the highest being, or what we believe is the highest being, who was Prophet Muhammad, right? So you find them in these 2 teachings, which is the Quran and the Seerah, which is in a book called the Rahiq al-Makhtum. So everything that you have to know, as like if I'm dying and I want to write my will, we have like who gets what and why. Like it's crazy. Like it goes to your kid if you don't have kids, your siblings if you don't have siblings, your parents, like, and it goes through all of that in depth. So you never really have like doubt or like what do I do now, or kind of going off the rails of what is the next step or what is the right thing to do. At the same time, one of the craziest things about religion, and this has like caused so much good and wreaked so much havoc at the same time, is this word that you definitely have heard of called interpretation. And different people's interpretation has caused, I know this is kind of like on a tangent, but like at the same time as you have all the answers in the book, there are people that misrepresent Islam because of their interpretation of the Quran.
Is that what goes into then like the Sunnis and the Shiites?
Yes, 100%. And people, I know this might be a little bit touchy, but this is like a conversation where I'm very sorry if this is very touchy for you, but the same thing with ISIS and that, and how they claim they're Muslims.
Right.
Like,
and that's like an kind of, what is it? I'm sorry that I'm mistaken, the Sunnis and the Shiites. Which one's the majority, if you will?
Sunni.
Okay.
Yeah, so Shiite is like the people who, and I'm very sorry if I do this misjustice because I'm not very, very familiar with it. The Shia are people who believe that Prophet Muhammad's nephew, Ali, peace be upon him, should have been the actual prophet. And they kind of gear their worship towards that.
And as a result of that disagreement, it kind of fueled, from what I understand, this sort of, I don't know, militant off-branch, would you say?
Honestly, yes. And that's what it is. And they start coming up with some of their own writings or coming up with interpretations of things that aren't even in the Quran, or just taking it and skewing it way, way, way out of proportion. I don't even like the term radical Muslims, because they're not radical Muslims. It's not Islam whatsoever. Do you know what I mean? I'm very, very sorry. Excuse me.
You're good.
So what I'm saying is, one of the things that ISIS does is they tell you, they literally, I'm very sorry again, this is a touchy subject, but they have this on camera. They say, proclaim Islam or you die. And they have someone, and they're ready to execute them if they don't accept the religion of Islam as their faith, right? Let's promote the religion of Islam. You are not allowed, it is prohibited, not only not to force the religion, but do anything but provide information about the religion to someone else. You are not allowed. If you wanted to learn about the religion, you can't even, I can't even start to tell you you should come in the religion. As a friend, I'm just giving you the information. This is what is in our book. This is what our teachings say. You by yourself, within your heart and with your faith and with what God instills in you, if that's what you believe, then you will join the faith on your own. If someone comes asking for questions, you answer those questions. It's not like a recruiting process, the way they're doing it. That is completely against the religion whatsoever. How are you going to say you're a Muslim and do something that is 100% against their religion? How are you going to killing prohibited in all, here on behalf of all Muslims and all of you guys watching, in the Quran, killing is prohibited for any Muslim except and literally solely in the case of self-defense, where in war or in the streets of Wilkes-Barre
they get a little sketchy.
They do. Your life is in jeopardy. Self-defense is the only time when you are able to, not even able to, but when it would be not of the gravest sins to kill somebody, right? So how are you going to do something that's completely against their religion and call yourself a Muslim? Is what boggles my mind. And this is what all the media covers. And then there's the rest of the Muslim population that's not like that whatsoever, and nobody really gets to meet them until a nice man such as yourself really opens up and is interested and wants to hear, how am I hearing this on the news? And they're saying that Muslims are terrorists, but Mustafa's the softest kid I've met in the past.
Dude, okay, there's so many things I want to dissect. I'm mad that I feel like there's no way I can remember all of them. So even just a few seconds ago, you talked about how murdering someone would be of the gravest of sins. So something that I believe and other Christians believe is that sins in their own right are enough to make you, what would the word be? Not righteous, not right enough for God. And that's the point of needing Jesus, of needing the Savior to bridge the gap, if you will, and be this ultimate perfect sacrifice, because you alone will never be perfect. And otherwise, you would just live a life of guilt and shame, or needlessly striving to be perfect, because there's no way you could live a life without sin. So I'm giving that big preface because by that logic, sinning by, say, for example, committing adultery on your wife, or giving false testimony by lying about another person, is the equivalent of murder, in that both make you not right for God. You don't get to say, look, I do lie about people a lot, but I've never murdered anyone, so it's God is going to favor me more than the murderers. No, you don't get it. Like, we have this perfect creator who, if we are going to believe is truly nothing but love, then it would be like, there has to be a better way to word this, but tainting him for us to be allowed in his kingdom exactly how we are without any sort of sacrifice bridging that gap, because we simply are by default imperfect in our human nature. So do you guys believe then, I guess is what I'm getting at, similar to how Christians believe that all sins make you not right for God? Or is there a tier system?
It's very, very, very complicated. So I'm going to start off by saying, كل بني آدم خطاء. Every son of Adam, human beings, is خطاء, a sinner, or someone that makes mistakes, right? Nobody is perfect.
Right.
So,
feel like Muslims and Christians are in strong agreement.
Very, very strong agreement, right? It's so complicated, and exactly like as you explained it, I love the way you said, like, how are we going to present ourselves in his kingdom? How are you going to face God on the day of judgment? We have a day of judgment. I believe you guys do as well. I don't know.
I mean, the thought is that when you die and go to heaven, then honestly, it's like, I'm almost ashamed. Actually, scratch that. I'm not ashamed. I just simply don't know. There's not no use for shame here. Yeah. But I guess the thought is, at least how I believe it, is that when you die, you'll be standing before God and Jesus, and will you either have a personal relationship with Jesus, so that way, regardless of any iniquities you have and imperfections you have, which if you are human, you do,
yep.
Then, but if you have that personal relationship with Jesus, then put simply, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't know what that looks like, because I haven't died and went to heaven. And I don't want to be guilty of pretending I know exactly what's on the other side, because I don't. And I think that we should be skeptical of anyone that believes they know the exact progression of what happens on the other side. That being said, that's like what I believe.
So the way it is viewed from the Islamic religion is you die and you're put in the grave, and once you're put in the grave, there's an angel that comes down and asks you, Man Rabbuk, Ma huwa dinuk, and basically it's, who is your God, what is your religion, and who is your prophet? And the three answers for us are Islam, Allah is my God, Mohammed is my prophet. And it won't be your tongue speaking in that moment, it's your faith. It's whatever you did, it's going to be your soul speaking. Your tongue, like, you can sit there and say, like, all right, here, we're going to quiz, like, what's your faith? It's not like that, right? It's whatever you did as a human being that's going to speak for you.
Oh, okay, so I cannot resist going down this path then. So then, do you believe, you personally, whether it's on behalf of all of Muslims or you specifically, do you believe then that it's what you have done, your actions throughout this life, that makes you right for God then?
Yeah.
Or is it like some sort of, there's no, I don't know. Let me word it in a Christian sense. So what I believe as a Christian wholeheartedly is that by having this personal relationship with Jesus, and just that alone is what makes me good enough for God, because I can't do it alone. And no matter how much good I do or how much evil I do, it doesn't change that I will be imperfect for God. So the basis of me being able to have a relationship with Jesus, the basis of me being able to have an eternal life, is simply by what Jesus did for humanity, and that he came, showed us by example how to live a perfect life, since it's never been done before in humanity, and then died for us knowing that he was this perfect person sent by God. And not only did he sacrifice himself, but then after being crucified and put in a tomb, rose from the dead and showed, like, symbolically, if you will, that he is a conqueror of death. And by cultivating a personal relationship with him, you also can prevail over death, not by what you do, but by what he did, by accepting his gift of dying for you. Mm-hmm. So it's predicated then on, it's not about your actions. If you have a personal relationship with Jesus, then you'll by default want to strive to live a life that glorifies God. Mm-hmm. You'll want to avoid things like lying about other people and not honoring your parents and so on and so forth. But when you do slip and fail, it does not matter if you have, accepted Jesus's gift of dying for you. And the point is that this is about to get deep, why I don't even consider myself religious in the term, religion is, at least in a contemporary sense, follow these rules. And if you believe these things, if you check off the boxes and say, I believe this, this, and this, and I did this, this, and this today, and I avoided doing this, this, and this today, I made myself right for God, now I have the ability to go to heaven. But that's not what it's about. In fact, I'm actually super opposed to that idea. I think it is impossible for humans to live these perfect lives. We're going to slip. And if we, believe we have this omniscient, perfect creator, then how could you ever live a life that actually glorifies someone that's perfect? You are going to live the rest of your life imperfect. And in doing so, I don't believe that any amount of good you do makes you good enough for God. And I don't believe that any amount of bad you do makes you, puts you to a point where you can't be forgiven and cultivate a relationship with God. So it seems like you do kind of have that same thought system.
Yes. So like you say, it's about your actions, and there's no such thing as being the best Muslims, and there's no ranking system, obviously, but when someone is a pious, righteous Muslim, they always believe that they're shorting themselves. Just in the same way, kind of skip back to wrestling, the best wrestlers always believe that they're not there yet because they just keep improving, right?
Ooh, but I would go as far as to say there is no best Christians.
So they're not the best. It's just these people that literally just worship day in, day out. They're just leaders of their religion, and what they do for a living is they live a life that glorifies God. They pray in the they are you guys have priests, we have a sheikh. They're a sheikh. They just teach, and they live a life that glorifies God, right? As you say, and even those people, I've witnessed they cry because they feel like they're not they know that they're still imperfect at that level. So the moment you start to believe I'm okay, or to start, like you say, checking boxes when you're totally not okay and you're totally not in the right? You have to always realize that there's always ways for improvement, and you always have to know that you can always go back to God, and God is always open for forgiveness. He can forgive anything. There was a man who killed 99 men, and God forgave him, right? Forgave him for his sins. So what can you do as great as killing 99 men that God won't forgive you for, right? So it really is, like you say, your actions and realizing that you're imperfect and just asking God for forgiveness day in and day out, and realizing that, have I missed a prayer before? 100%. Have I missed multiple prayers? 100%. Have I been lazy? Oh yeah. But at the end of the day, do I sit there and does it itch me, and I wake up and get up and get ready and make up those prayers? And is it do I go back and I say, wow, I shouldn't have done that? I have to go back and repent to God. I'm someone, I'll be honest with you, this, I curse, right? That's definitely not something that glorifies God. And,
would you say, this is just me out of curiosity, would you say that's sinful though?
Or believe so. It's not something that would make, like, just, I believe, like, watching your tongue and making, because what kind of picture are you painting of yourself as a Muslim, as someone who is, what's the word? A representative of the religion. Not many people know many Muslims. So if I'm the only Muslim, me and Abdul, my brother, shout out Abdul, are the only two Muslims you know, what kind of picture are we painting for you through Muslim religion? Like, we
That's
believe,
true.
like...
I do agree with that in that, like, I kind of think the same thing for myself. And for some reason, I've been, like, known among my friend groups as someone that just, like, regularly does not curse.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's just, like, a silly thing. But at the same time, not only do I not have a problem with it, I could not see it as sinful to, like... But depending on how you're using it.
Yeah.
Are you just joking around?
Yeah, yeah.
Because how could be making a sound with your mouth something that...
Your tongue isn't... This is at least what we believe. You could believe something different. This is the great thing, is that we have different beliefs, but, like, we just coexist. So the way, like, we believe it is, like, you're not supposed to curse because your tongue, like, you have to watch your tongue, and, like, your tongue is going to testify for you. Everything in the Day of Judgment, to go back in the Day of Judgment, is going to testify for you. Your hands are going to testify for what they did. Your eyes are going to testify for what they saw. Your tongue is going to testify for what it said. And if your tongue is testifying and saying, instead of glorifying God and saying, all praise be to the Almighty, all praise be to God, all praise be to the most forgiving, all praise be to the greatest, I'm saying these things that...
Right. And I do agree that you should be...
doing that more instead, but, like... And then, like, it kind of goes back to the whole thing of, like... It just adds to being well-rounded. And people are always like, well... Like, even in Muslims, they'll be like, well, like, technically, is it that bad? And I'm like... You want to be a good, well-rounded person. Like, when I think of a good, well-rounded person, they have, like, clean mouth, and, like, they're just, not because they're, like...
See, I don't know about that. Some of the people that I'm closest with truly
are
will, like, have a sailor's mouth.
Yeah, I know, but they're great people.
But they're the most loving, genuine, intelligent, hardest working people I know. Yep. So I actually, I don't know. I know this could make some of those closest to me with that share the Christian faith maybe be like, Cole, you knucklehead. that is not what Scripture is telling you. But I would really make the case that, first off, going back to, not being able to... It's not even like it's the you can't live a perfect life thing, because I don't want to make people think that I think that Christians can just do whatever they want, and it's oh, well, you said you're, forgiven now, so just go crazy. Because the point is that if you have a personal relationship with God, then even if you don't suffer some eternal punishment or whatever, you're glorifying Him because you want to glorify Him.
Exactly. That
being said, I don't think that it makes you lesser of a person to make some certain sound known as a curse word that who knows how we decided what words are bad words and what words are good words that make you a clean-cut person. I honestly think it's really silly.
Yeah, and there's different ways to look at it, but the way I see it is, can I still be a good person without it? Yes. The other question I ask myself, or we may ask ourselves, is would using those words in some cases maybe attribute you to being not even a bad person, but not that it makes you lesser of a person. Just like you said, I know a lot of people who say those mouths that I love and, like, are seriously good people and do great things for people around them, for God, for the community, whatever it is, right? But could that possibly attribute you to being someone who isn't respectful and isn't glorifying God? Yes. So even if there isn't one set rule on it,
it all depends on the context of how you're using your language.
And then here's how we make this judgment. Ready? We have a hadith. Hadith is kind of it's like a teaching, right? we can really delve into this, but I'm going to keep it at face value right there. Also, I'm going to provide some information because I know I'm saying a lot of words and saying a lot of things. My information, if anyone is watching this and has any questions for me and wants me to get a little bit deeper and has any questions or was confused by anything that I said, I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, we'll put like all your contact information and stuff out.
Just saying, like, I'm more than open to that. So, anyways, it's we say al-halal bayin. Al-halal is what is allowed. Bayin, which means is very clear. When haram bayin, haram is what's prohibited. Is bayin, is very clear. وَبَيْنَهُمْ أُمُورٌ مُشْتَبِهَاتٌ. And between them are a few things that are, I guess in America, we would call gray area.
Yeah.
So in the hadith, it says, كَالرَّاعِ يَرَى حَوْلَ الْحِمَى يُوشِكُ أَنْ يَقَعَ فِيهِ. Right? What that is it's like a shepherd with his goats. A shepherd is feeding his goats. He's eating grass, right? And there's a kingdom, right? There's a line where the kingdom's grass starts, and
I got it.
There's a line where the kingdom's grass starts and where his grass, or where he's allowed to feed his sheep, stops, right? It's kind of like the shepherd who brings his sheep not in the kingdom, but around the kingdom. Yushiku an yaqa fi, like you're going to end up falling into it. Like one of your sheep is going to end up eating out of the grass of that kingdom. The whole like analogy or like the picture they're trying to paint is don't come close to something that you're not sure about because you're probably going to end up falling into something that's not right. You know what I mean? Like, is that like kind of a clear picture for you? Like,
it does, but it's not something that I can come to terms with. And I'm actually going to backtrack a little bit. Maybe I'll just take us kind of off that script. So we said that like we agree that it's not about the amount of rules you follow and whatnot. It's about, you know, what God has done for you, whatnot. Not what you have done for God. At least I think we're kind of on that same page. But I think that you and your faith has a lot more emphasis, though, on what you do for God. And I don't want to put that in a bad light for Christians because it's important that we believe that, we want to live this life that glorifies God.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't believe anything that we do, can make a difference in how God feels about us, and that we're just loved no matter what. So, where I'm going with this, and I'm thankful that we're as close friends as we are, I won't be able to bite the bullet and bring this up, but I feel like there's a lot of rules, things like the number of prayers throughout the day, or I know we didn't bring this up in the podcast, but not being able to eat pork, and things that stick out to me, in my opinion, as man-made rules that are trying to make yourself right for God,
mm-hmm.
that I don't know how they would make God, are you doing them because it makes God love you more? Are you doing it to avoid punishment? Because...
So, I'm just gonna, something that you said, to make it clear, the prayers and that kind of thing, isn't a man-made thing. It was mandated by God. So the prayers that we have, the 5 prayers that we do a day, and that we don't eat pork and whatnot, all of these things were mandated by God when He was revealing the Quran.
But do you have these reasons available to you why you wouldn't be able to do something for example, and I know I'm kind of picking something that, at least from this Western culture perspective, naturally seems silly to many people that aren't within the Muslim faith, but for say not eating pork, it seems silly is a word I'm going to choose. I can't think of a better word. Silly that why would God say not eating one of these animals I put on earth, that's something I need you to do for me.
So it's not eating pork is really, really popular because that's it's just a main thing that's eaten around here. But it's not only pork that we can't eat. You also can't eat so pork, and then you can't eat anything that is a predator, lions, that kind of thing. So grass eating animals Also, it's not right to eat, I believe, and I'm sorry if this isn't 100% correct, but I'm pretty sure if something is used for riding, like horses, you probably shouldn't eat that either. So like, you usually don't see people eating lion, but we can't eat that, like a carnivorous meat. So like, it's not just pork. If people are like, why just the pig, right? Or why just this? You also can't, and this is like, again, like people these days would be like, well, duh. But back in the day, this is something different. Like, you can't eat bones. You can't eat an animal that was dead, that you found dead. So we're allowed to eat deer, but if a deer is found dead, you can't eat that, right? You can't drink blood. Obviously, again, people are like, well, people don't drink blood anyways, but hundreds and hundreds of years ago, people did that for like whatever reasons they had, or, for different like faiths or whatever it is. Like, I know for some of the sacrifices the Mayans did, part of it was drinking blood, right? So that kind of thing is also prohibited, and we have like many prohibitions on food. It's just that pork is the one that's really, really focused on.
Right. And it's not even like I'm tied to that. Like all of those, every single one you just named, when you say them, I'm like, why does it matter if you do that? Like, right. I don't understand how it makes you a better person or a worse person. It's
just something that's prohibited by God that would not like glorify him for you to do that.
But how? Like I know I'm digging deep here, but like if you have this perfect creator that has made all of the universe, why in the world would it matter if you ate pork? Or like, I don't mean I understand why it matters, like according to like you're given the scripture that tells you not to do it. But I mean deeper than that. Why would it be put in there? Why? What sort of barrier would it put between you and God that like you shouldn't be doing that?
So, and this is just my interpretation. I'm again apologizing to anyone that may disagree with this, but this goes back to the thing, and I'm so glad I mentioned it before, but remember I told you about Surat al-Baqarah, the cow?
Okay.
He said, slaughter a cow. And they were like asking questions where what they should have done was just, Sami'na wa ata'na. We say that in Arabic a lot, is we heard and we did, right? And it almost makes it seem like humans, like just to be ignorant, but that's not what it is. Like, I think based off of that teaching of the chapter of the cow, is like God said not to do this, so don't do it type of thing. Like, that's just, you know what I mean? And there's also like reasons
okay, so I know what you mean.
And like so God, we believe, is all knowing, right? God is all knowing. We're also not allowed to drink alcohol, right? First, when the religion was first starting, they would drink alcohol, but only after the last prayer. And now it's prohibited completely because of the health benefits, or not the health benefits, the health disadvantages that it could pose for human beings, and that you won't be able to focus in your prayer if you're drunk, right? So it was just completely taken off the table. Mm-hmm. Blood, like that kind of thing, or like dead animals. I think it's also a health thing. Pigs are just, for us, seen as not like the cleanest animal. So it might be a health thing, and it's like so my belief, like to have full faith in God for me, is just to believe that God is the all-knowing and God knows best. This book came from God. God tells me and told Prophet Muhammad, and Prophet Muhammad did not do this, so I'm not going to do this. And God, because God told us not to. Or God told us to pray 5 times a day as a sense of worship. Maybe I don't understand because I'm not the most intelligent human, or I'm not able to pick it apart, but there has to be something right in me praying 5 times a day. And you find that there is, like, I'm going back and I'm like, I go back, you are having such a busy day, no matter how hard you work, you find time for God. You go back and if you're praying, you are inevitably thinking about God, right? Like, I'm worshiping God, so like, it always keeps you connected. It's so crazy. Here's why, because I went through this version of this part of my life where I kind of strayed away from religion. I wasn't praying, right? And like, that is like terrible, like horrible. If my parents heard this, they'd probably kill me. Don't watch. And I just noticed And this is the craziest thing, that before I was a young person who was brought up in the religion of Islam, who just believed these things, and I took them to be true. And I followed the religion. But now I truly, truly believe that the path of the religion is like so amazing and so like meant for you to be the best kind of person that you can. Here's what. As I strayed away from prayer, as a whole, I began doing other things that I would not be doing when I was close to God. So the prayer kept me close to God, kept me pious, kept me righteous, kept me glorifying God. And I would, like, how are you going to be, here's what I'm trying to say. You're not going to be praying 5 times a day and drinking and getting with girls and being an avid smoker and whatnot, right? It doesn't go hand in hand. And it changes little by little. It goes from praying.
The death of 1,000 cuts.
Oh, there we go. It goes from death of 1,000 cuts, perfect. Like, it goes from praying 5 times a day to just praying to get it over with 5 times a day to maybe praying 4 times a day, 4 times and making 1 up, 3, 2, and then maybe you're forgetting to pray the whole entire day. And you get into this system of, okay, well, now I don't pray. You start going down this other path that's not right for you. So I think all these, and before I was like, I pray because I'm told to pray. And now I'm like, I really believe and I know why prayer is good for me. Like, I wake up and I pray and I keep praying and I get back to God, and it helps me realize, like, this is my faith and this is really why I'm here. I'm here because God gave me the chance to. We believe this life as a test, right? Or this life is preparation for a test. God is the teacher, and you are given all the materials that you have. You can study, and you can go, and then the test is the day of judgment. You can do well on the test, and then after you do well, you get your degree, go to heaven, right?
See, I have to add here, I think that, again, a little bit of discrepancy is, I would say, the test is passed when you accept Jesus into your heart as your Savior and like form this personal relationship with Him. So then the rest of your life isn't necessarily seen as a test in terms of, like, did you do these things each day? Did you pray each day? Did you go to church on Sunday? And so on and so forth. But instead, you just do those things because you want to do them. But I know that is partially what you're saying.
So, like, it's not that, like, here's the thing.
I'm sorry if I keep driving this into the ground, but I do want to push you on it.
It's okay. No, it's okay. I like that. So, here's the thing. I don't know how to, like, it's so hard to articulate so many things here. Okay. There's a difference between doing it because God said pray 5 times a day and doing it because you love worshiping God, and you love God so much that whatever He told you is what you want to do.
I agree, but I do want to interject. What if you love God and you want to do, what He tells you, but, you pray 4 times a day wholeheartedly and you're pumped, but I guess I'm saying, why does it matter if, for example, you pray 4 times a day wholeheartedly and all out and you're really focused on worshiping God? Why does it matter that you're following that role of this seemingly abstract number 5 as opposed to 4 or 6 or 3? Like, it's hard for me to wrap my head around why I would follow, like, rules that seem abstract instead of just accepting that I'm loved and then just doing my best, but thinking, like, it doesn't matter if I follow, this exact formula.
Mm-hmm. So you still do your best with the thing is, like, God mandated 5. Like, it's not like people say, like, it's like, why 5? Like, so there's, like, a whole story where, and oh God, I feel like it's just because, like, the pressure of being, like, like, a lot of my facts are getting mixed up, but I think it was, like, I really hope I'm right. I think it was Prophet Moses. God was going to mandate prayer, and He was talking to Prophet Moses, and He said, like, it'll be 50 prayers a day. And Prophet Moses was like, that's, like, a lot and too much. Like, cut it back. And he kept cutting it back until it was 5 prayers a day that like the humans had to do, or like, sorry, Muslims had to do to worship God. And like, not that it's just like he made, like, I would understand if like humans or like people that followed the Muslim religion said, pray 5 times a day, and this is how you're going to do it so you can worship God. It's that God said to worship him 5 times a day. And that's just because.
So that goes back to like your first story of you were told to butcher and eat the cow.
Slaughter a cow. Just slaughter
Sorry,
a cow.
I misworded it. Okay.
No, it's okay. Butcher. Same thing. Slaughter, butcher.
Okay.
Tomato.
But a spin on that then, are you able then to question, like, what do I believe and why? And here's the reason I ask this. I believe that the reason I hold my faith so near and dear to me, and this is not a commonality shared among everyone, among all contemporary religions. I have this deep personal faith because I feel like I arrived at it asking, okay, why do I believe this for each individual thing, and willing to question my faith and willing to challenge my faith and think like, okay, if I wasn't growing up learning scripture, would I still arrive at the same conclusion, and why? If I was born halfway around the world and I was still blessed with parents that taught me how to critically think, but they didn't raise me in a Christian family, would I still arrive at the same conclusion?
Yeah.
That matters to me so much, and I don't think we can say that we would really arrive at the same conclusions unless we're willing to challenge what we believe. So, for example, I'll leave it at this, and I'd love to hear your input and where you think there's room or not room, and challenging what you think. I have this thing written on my wall within my daily principles, if you will, that says, be skeptical of the status quo, but don't take an identity and the road less traveled. There's a difference between asking good questions and being overtly disagreeable. Mm-hmm. So I don't think, put in terms of my own Christian faith, that it would have been helpful in any way, shape, or form if I opened up the Bible as like, okay, how can I prove this wrong and this wrong and this wrong? That's not in any way, shape, or form what I'm saying. But I do think it's important to make your own walk of faith meaningful and personal to you, to question, okay, why is it that I believe that? Why is this there? How is this serving me? Mm-hmm. And does that make sense?
That makes sense. One, I just want to say something. I believe that there should be a part B to this podcast with a man very dear to my heart. That is my dad. I think you and the viewers would honestly love to hear from somebody like him, because he has, and I'm just sure of this, much better answers than I'm about to provide you with. So if that's something you're interested in.
I'm curious what you believe.
Yeah. So the reason why I believe in Islam, and the reason why I believe that if I wasn't born Muslim, I would grow up to learn and love the religion of Islam, is that when challenged, the religion has the answer. So if I have a question and I'm like, if I'm unsure about something, I always found it in the Quran. If I'm unsure of what to do, we believe I think one of the differences is we believe that the Quran is the field guide. This the Quran is, how do I explain this?
I do understand what you're saying. If I'm experiencing this, then I should do this.
Yeah, and here's it's literally like a study guide. I'm going to use this again. It's this is how you should study for your test. This is what you should know. And so when learning neuropsychology, the amygdala controls fear and emotions. The posterior amygdala controls positive. The anterior amygdala controls negative. And face value, that's information. And it's asking why is almost it's just like that's what it is. So like when learning about the faith, like, ooh, like this is what I learned, and that's it. And it's not that it closes down open-mindedness, but like we found, I think that, and this is where like we might be conflicting, like philosophers, people that always ask the question why, usually like, I don't even know how to say this. I guess this is almost like a bite the bullet statement as well. And I'm just going to say this because I know you won't take offense to it, but people that always ask the question why, or always ask the question what, or just like the people of the story of the cow, like that's the way you're not supposed to be. And people will be like, well, this is like a really closed-minded religion and whatnot, and people don't see anything outside of it. But when like you're taught like the best way, and that's just what you know what to do, then, and I could be doing this like an extreme disjustice, but that's just what I believe. Like, I believe everything to be true and like perfect about their religion. And if anybody that goes and takes the Quran and follows it perfectly, I believe wholeheartedly can't go wrong. Like you literally cannot go wrong with doing everything that like you could be following the Quran and the Sirah to the T would make you the most close to perfect that you could possibly be. And that's why I believe like there's nothing in the religion that's like, oh, I don't know about that. Like there's nothing that I've ever read in the Quran that I was like, I don't know about that part of the religion. Like everything that I read is just, to me, morally, as a human being, just right and like makes me believe and love the religion even more. I don't know if like, I think we're in totally different parts. Like to be able to, like I understand. And here, tackle this part of the question where it was like, to be able to look at this and say, why do I believe in this? Like, I believe in it because it's just, I don't even know how to answer this. It's a very hard question. So
it's okay if I steer us back.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I do have, I don't know, I guess a little bit of a conflict still with, I'll use your analogy of the amygdala. So you talk about how at face value, like we just were told that the amygdala governs our positive and negative emotions. So you hear that, what can you get with asking why? You just are giving that information. But I don't think that we can tie that analogy to what we believe about, why and how we're here, because I believe that science explains to us how, and it does not explain to us why. It's not science's job to tell us why.
Yeah.
It is Scripture's job to teach us why, and it is our own logical thought processes' job to teach us why. I don't think it's science's job or history's job or math's job to do that. Those things show us how, not why. Whereas Christian faith or your Muslim faith, or well, maybe I don't want to prescribe it to you. My Christian faith to me explains why. Like, why am I here? What should I be doing?
Yeah.
And even outside of my Christian faith, just like how I think in general, like even if someone was like, Cole, it's like wrong of you to think that. I simply cannot stop thinking this way. I, for the rest of my life, do not want to stop analyzing what am I doing and why am I doing it. Like, is what I'm believing serving me? Maybe I shouldn't word it that way, but like, am I believing something for a reason, or am I just believing it because I was told to believe it? Like, I believe
it because the why for us to be here on earth is to serve God and be the best that we possibly can. That's my why. I'm here first and foremost. So this is our life right now, right? Hayat al-dunya, we call it. Dunya is earth or our like the life that you live with your physical body, right? What we do in this life is solely so we can live in the eternal life, which is in heaven, God willing, right? Inshallah. Like everything we do, it's just, can you believe in this and can you do this so you can be granted something in heaven? Like everything we're doing is to work something in heaven. Be a righteous human being. Give charity. Pray to God. Worship God. Like, he gave you these things. He gave you the ability. He gave you the eyesight, the ability to walk, the intelligence that you're doing to get all this wealth and make a family. Like, how are you going to thank God for this? God is giving you these things, and he gave us this world, and he gave us all of these opportunities that you can go astray with. I made a lot of money. I can go and I can be like, go crazy and do the wrong things and be like spending it on strip clubs and doing like terrible things and whatnot. Like, not that strip clubs are terrible things, but I'm just saying, like, in two different statements. You know what I mean? So, are you going to make the right decisions with what God gives you? And if God gives you hardship, are you going to be patient? Are you going to be like still thankful to God? Or are you going to say, why are you doing this, God? So, like, God rewards those who are patient, and if you are given something, you are thankful for it. And God says, "Ashkuruni azidannakum." Thank me, and I will grant you more. So, while it is very, very important to strive and reach the highest level of your intelligence, if you're an intelligent person, go out, do something with it, like, benefit from it.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Which is why I'm doing medicine. Like, a huge part of it is, one, honestly, like, people are always like, this shouldn't be the reason you're in medicine, but a huge part of it is, one, like, I like science and it's the hardest thing to do, right? That's just like the competitive part of me. Two, God gave me something, and like, if I'm someone who goes to the mosque and prays every day and gives charity, but I'm not continuing my education and not pursuing knowledge, then I'm not doing a service to God. God wants us to pursue knowledge and become smarter and smarter and just use what he's giving us to the full capacity. And that's why we're here. And to realize that in the end, this life, what we're doing in this life, is just so we can have a better hereafter. Right? Like, this life, I don't even want to say it doesn't matter, but it's just like a small thing, a small test.
Dude, okay, real quick.
Go ahead.
I agree completely that I use my own faith and belief as a Christian to kind of, when needed, and inspire myself, if you will, to push my boundaries, to when I don't want to study, to, study hard and whatever, you name it, study, work out, go to work, it doesn't matter, to, kind of max out my potential.
Sure.
And I would be lying if I said that's like the only thought I have that drives me. That goes back to the conflicting ideas thing. And I don't even mean conflicting ideas, but there's different things that like inspire me and motivate me and want me to pursue this limitless potential and really try to max out the life I have. But what you said that really, really resonated with me, that I also used to fuel, I don't know, me taking on these crazy challenges with life, is that you were like, in a sense, because of what I believe, this life kind of doesn't matter. In that, like, if you truly believe you have this eternal life afterwards here on earth, then in some ways it doesn't matter. So here's how I kind of exercise that within my own life, that I don't think enough people use to their own advantage. I think if we really are called to believe this, that everything here is, this sounds kind of nihilistic maybe, but meaningless. And even people outside of Christian Muslim faith, say atheists and agnostics, often believe like, okay, there is no deeper meaning, so everything here is meaningless. We, even though for a different reason, are in agreement that like our life here on earth isn't like the end all be all. Okay, so I took a while to get to this point, but here's how I feel use that to my advantage in being the best version of myself. If everything here on earth, if there's no ultimate goal, if there's no such thing as ultimate failure or ultimate success, because everything is in a sense meaningless, then that eliminates all fear of embarrassment, all performance anxiety, because each and every day is just a day for continuous growth. That's why in my wrestling locker, I have written hurry up and fail. That's why in the wall in my room, it says hurry up and fail, because I'm willing to take these enormous chances and try to create this path of ideally ridiculously large positive impact left on the earth, and do that without worrying like, oh, what are people going to think of me while I'm taking this unorthodox path? Or I'm like shooting for the stars and people are like, dang, this kid's out of his mind. In my head, it's like, this is just, I don't word it as meaningless in my head.
Not meaningless.
In fact, I often, for some reason, I just choose to use this verbiage. I'm like, it's almost like it's just a game. Because if I believe that I'm already
You're already
in the
accepted.
right place,
Yeah.
yes. If I'm already in the right place with God, truly, and that's not to be said lightly, but we had talked about that already. If I'm already in the right place with God, then everything else is I treat it like a game in some ways. Like, why should I get super worked up about exactly if everything goes according to expectation, or why should I be like, this is kind of my biggest dream, but I'm not going to do it because I want to do this thing that's safer with financial security, or I don't want to disappoint my parents who thinks it's better for me just to like do this thing, or I don't want to disappoint my friends who thinks, you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead I'm like, I'm right with God, so that's all I need. I just need to be right with God, and now everything else is just me kind of seeing things as a game and me just picking a point, and it removes all those fears in many ways. Does that make sense?
It does, and that's actually a really, really cool way to think about it, and I've never honestly viewed it as that. And when I do, like just internally, like a lot of like pressures were like released. Like just to give an example, like my most recent loss to the kid at Muhlenberg, like I'm still worked up about that, and I was like, if this is a game and I have like an end goal, then like, why? Like, why am I upset about this?
Exactly. Like when people, for example, so many people have fear of public speaking because they're like, oh, all these people are judging me and stuff. I see it as like a game of like in the grand scheme of things, does this really matter? Like no matter what, I already have this path of eternity, if you will, set before me. And even if you're outside of the Christian faith, you still believe the sun's going to come up tomorrow and life's going to go on. So who cares? Like, just go out and just let loose. Yeah. I feel the same way about wrestling performance. I feel the same way about pursuing your career goals. And at the same time, going back to conflicting ideas, I still take it super seriously to the point where I'm like, you know, when everyone else is asleep, I want to be awake working, or like I want to be like working in silence and like getting far ahead. But even though I put in all that work and I'm so like intimately tied to this hero's journey, if you will, when it comes time to perform, when comes time to deliver the speech or take a big exam or go out and wrestle, I kind of just like put all the fear aside, because I'm like, okay, time to hurry up and fail. Even if I fail, I'm just going to keep pushing the needle back further and get a little better. Even if I win, even if I normally wouldn't bring this up, but like, I mean this wholeheartedly. Like you had brought up the Wendell Award. Like, that doesn't matter. Like in the grand scheme of things, like, who cares? Like those moments that people are picturing as the big moments, those are just the games to me. Those are like I'm just playing through those. It's really just this long, continuous journey of improvement. And that's why I feel like I can visualize it as a game.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Honestly, like, and I like applaud you for your just to have that security in your faith is something that it's not easy to come by, honestly. And just so you know, and I've never really explored, because I'm like usually the minority. People always ask me about my faith, but we never really usually get to their faith. So this is like the most I'm really hearing about the Christian religion. I didn't really know that was like the ideology of it was just to, as long as you're okay with God, like as long as you're on that, just again, this is really, really face value, it's a lot deeper than this, but as long as you're okay with God, like if you're at good standing with God, then everything else is okay. Yes. And I didn't know that. And like, I applaud you to have that faith and you live your life around that is just something that I don't think many people are able to do and have like problems with, because you really start to doubt yourself and you say, well, what if this, and what if that? And, just wow. Like I never really thought about that. So
I really do appreciate that beyond like what I can put into words. And it's for that reason, I guess, that at the number one spot in my daily principle list is glorify God through the thoughts, motives, and actions resulting from my personal relationship with Jesus. Because if I have that personal relationship with Jesus, A, I can go through life free of that kind of fear and also guilt that we talked about. And B, something I didn't really touch on, is that if I'm really called to believe that I'm made in the image of God, which I think is something that's like shared among the Christian and Muslim faith, is this idea that we're like made in God's image. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Anyway, so if we're really called to believe that we're made in God's image, and we believe that God is infinitely capable of these great goods beyond our imagination, why am I not capable of great goods beyond my imagination? Why am I not capable of this limitless human potential? And I don't think there's any way that I could, take that away from myself. I really do believe that as a product of me being made in God's image, there's literally nothing that I'm incapable of with the right amount of, given the right amount of time. I truly believe, I know it sounds so egotistical, but I mean this deep down, with every ounce of my body. I do not think there's any, objective I can't set for myself in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. It might be ridiculously longer than what people think any person would ever, work towards. But I really do believe, deep down, whatever goal I would be willing to set for myself, I can achieve it, no matter how enormous or crazy or daunting people would think it would be. It would be, and it's all because of, it all starts, I should say, the foundation of that is because I believe that I'm made in God's image.
So, I also believe that, I also live by this limitless mindset. It honestly gets me through every day, every morning, every class, every workout, everything that I possibly do. It's just I can do this. It's unreal how much the mind has control over the body. Unreal. And at the same time, I think the only difference, not the only difference, there's many differences, but between God and humans is God can really do anything. For example, no matter I'm sure you're on the same page with this. Actually, I'm not sure. I don't know. I can't make the sun come up from the west.
I agree. Okay.
Right?
The caveat I should add to what I was saying is that I believe that I have limitless human potential. I use the word human intentionally when I say that. Is because I believe that we can all recognize and pursue our limitless human potential.
Exactly. No, and I agree with that. And completely. And anybody can. And I think that's how people should live. And that's really what you should believe and work to achieve. What are you doing if you're not trying to do the best? Are you just living life to get by with mediocrity? And usually that when you're just looking to achieve mediocrity, you achieve failure. So let me tell you, great example, Moustafa Wrestling. I hang on, and I'm looking to achieve mediocrity, which is win by 1 point. I just want to get out and win. Well, this year we just noticed I lost close match 3-2 because I waited till the end to score. I lost a triple overtime because I waited too long to score. So in the same exact sense, you can't just do the bare minimum. you can't just, for example, pray 5 times a day because I have to, right? Because then, like, are you doing it because you have to, or are you doing it because you love God? Where are you actually standing? So reach that highest potential. Pray 5 times a day and do more. You're going to find love in God. You're going to find, like, all this stuff, and that's when you are motivated. Don't do it because you have to. Do it because you want to and because you love that. And that's when that's on the same path of reaching your limitless potential. Who told you that you can't be literally the biggest doctor in the world? Who told you that? Who? Someone else has done it, right? Someone else has become the biggest this or that in the world. Someone else has been seen as that. Like, who told that person that they can't do it? Everyone. Who did it? That same person, right? And, like, just realizing, like, hey, like, I can legit do anything I want, like, and it's amazing how it resonates in every part of my life. It's amazing, and, like, I truly think this is from God. I attribute everything that has happened to me 100% to God. Like, I work hard and everything, but who gave me that willpower? God. Who actually made this happen for me? God. That jump from freshman to sophomore year, that's not normal. That's not normal at all. That doesn't happen. Like, people that watched me were like, that should not have happened. Like, no amount of work could have been put in for me in my body type, in my, like, weird way of wrestling. And even now when I wrestle, it looks like I suck because just the way I wrestle is just so not orthodox. But it works. Like, I believe that's all from God. And, like, I believe you can really do anything. And I used to be this small kid in my bathroom wearing my singlet and thinking, I can win states. I can go out and win states. I can do it. I can compete at the college level. And I wasn't there, but that's what I believed. And I just, like, hey, I could do whatever I wanted, no matter what my coaches say, no matter that I got pinned 5 times in one day. Literally, like, I would go out and get pinned 5 times in one day. Look, that doesn't matter to me. Like, I can do it. And I believe, like, every human should be, in every aspect of their life, going towards this limitless potential, this limitless human potential. And, like, it's amazing. And I honestly see this with you in your life. Like, you could tell that's 100% your mindset, and you don't care. And, like, just as you talked to me earlier in the year, I don't know if you remember, but up in the sub, you were wearing a pink shirt. Yeah. Or no, blue shirt, pink tie. And you were telling me about what you wanted to do with your career. And I was like, wow, like, that is, like, so, like, you take, this is everyone, and then you go doctor of pharmacy, and then you go thinner and thinner and thinner still to what you want to do, to a point where it's like you are 1 out of 7 point whatever billion people who can possibly get this done, but that's what you're going towards. And that is, like, wow, like, that's someone who is going towards their limitless potential. That's someone who really believes, like, I can do this, and no matter what it takes, I'm willing to do whatever it will take. And I know that. So here's what I have. Here are my tools. And you're just like, put me to use. Like, I want to put this to use. And you know what you have, and it's amazing. That's part of the problem that people have. They don't understand. Like, they have this amazing mind inside their head. Everyone has this amazing mind inside their head.
They just have to switch from that fixed mindset to that limitless mindset.
And, like, that's what will grant you success in everything, as far as religion, as far as whatever it is. Don't just get by.
Dude, yeah, it's that, and I'm borderline becoming Tom Billy propaganda here, but like, exactly what you're saying. One of my favorite quotes of all time is, stop asking yourself what's the least you can do, and ask yourself what is the most you can bear. Meaning, stop trying to do the bare minimum, start seeking the maximum. Like, when you know that you can, I don't know, get by with 4 hours of studying and pass.
How much can you possibly do?
Yeah, it's like, man, like, maxed out, like,
without dying from lack of sleep.
But it's not even just that. That's just, like, what comes to my head naturally. But I don't know. Even beyond my Christian faith, I have, like, this innate curiosity to see how far I can go. I want to max this out. Like, how far can I take it? Because as far as I know, from what I've proved to myself so far, there's no limits. Yeah. Like, I just keep pushing them back. And I just keep doing things that I would not have believed if I could go back in time and tell myself in high school, like, oh, you could do this. like
Like,
this
no
will like you will be this type of person. You will have done these things 5 years from now. I'd be like, there's literally no way that I become that person in
Yeah.
5 years. So like now I just have like this curiosity for the rest of my life of I want to see how far I can take it. Like I don't think there's going to be a limit. And given that you have intention and you're aiming it at something, I think you can just keep going. So I have like these aims and stuff, but I think even if you're someone that doesn't have that clear-cut goal yet, like maybe you aren't a crazy neurotic person like me that has phone notes, that's their 50-year plan, quite literally, in chronological order of how they plan on accomplishing this ridiculous mission. That's fine. I don't think you need to know exactly what it is you want to be doing 10 years from now, 20 years from now, etc. Or maybe you don't even know exactly what job you want out of college. Maybe you aren't in college and it doesn't matter. You could not know exactly what it is you want to do yet, but I would argue we always kind of know what it is we should be doing in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, maybe you wake up, and I'm going to be guilty of continuing to tailor this towards college students here, but maybe you wake up in the morning and you don't know what you're doing after college, but you sure as heck know that you have an exam tomorrow, so you should be studying for it. You always kind of know what you should be doing.
Yeah.
And when you aren't doing it, when you're like, drinking yourself into oblivion, or you're intentionally losing, or you keep losing hours of sleep because you lay in bed and watch YouTube for hours on end, night after night, you know that you aren't doing
what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Even though you don't know what the end plan is.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't have put that any better, honestly. Like, that was really, really well worded. And, like, you know what you should be doing. It's just, I know I want to go to med school. I'm not sure where it's going to take me. I'm not sure where I want to go to med school. I'm not sure if I'm going to get in med school right after school. I'm not sure if I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 gap years. But I know I want to go to med school. And you know what? I can look as far down the road as I want. But you know what's going to get me into med school? I have a biochemistry test in about a week. And the next step for me to get into med school is to study for that test and get a good grade, because that leads to a 4.0, and what that leads to is good grades, and what the med school needs is good grades. And the next step is I have to take an MCAT course, prepare for my MCAT. I don't know what it is. I don't know what I don't know what the end goal is, but right now I have to be doing this. You know what I mean? Right now I have to go to sleep because I need sleep to retain knowledge. I'm in art. Art is going to do nothing for me. I don't know. Maybe it will, but art will do nothing for me. But right now, for the 4.0, I have to spend 4 hours in drawing my face. That's what I have to do. Like, it's really well put how you worded that, and I really like that.
Thanks, dog.
Yeah.
I'm super glad that we got to go through this conversation.
Really interesting, like, turns of events.
Mainly just because it makes me so frustrated to be surrounded by people that are not willing to hear other people out and have just a good, open-minded conversation. I don't even mean just in terms of religion and spirituality and everything under that umbrella. It might be politics. It might be anything that you could be strongly opinionated.
Yeah.
It could be about food. It literally does not matter. People so often now, and maybe it's just in our faces because of like social media and stuff, and we see like these disagreements blowing up in front of us, but people don't want to hear each other out and have thoughtful conversations and figure out why they believe what they believe. Yeah. And I wish more people were willing to have that conversation.
Yep. And this has been itching my mind. If you don't mind, I'm going to pull my phone out because I said something wrong. I didn't want to. I think it's also, I don't know why, like, I never blank on this. And I literally teach at Sunday school. I teach this, so I'm very disappointed in myself. But
you're
1
good.
second.
Do your thing. Just to continue going off.
Okay.
Oh, you have it? Go ahead.
5 pillars of Islam. Hajj, which was the pilgrimage. Praying, fasting, charity. And the 5th thing I said was fitr, which is another word for charity. I was like blanking. The 5th thing is just proclaiming your faith, which is saying there is no God but God and Mohammed is a prophet. That's it. Just the proclamation of faith. Like just saying that this is my faith. So those are the 5 pillars of Islam. That makes you a Muslim. On a very, very, very broad aspect, like that is the 5 pillars, and the world is beneath you for how much is inside this, to me, very, very beautiful religion. So just wanted to clear that up for anybody out there. Those are the 5 pillars of Islam. Anybody that was listening before, I did mix that up. Very sorry about that. I also don't know why I was blanking on that. It's like the most obvious thing. But just wanted to throw that in the...
Before we end the podcast, where can people find you if they want to follow you or learn more about the life of Moustafa Almeky?
So I guess I'm going to start with my Instagram. My Instagram is Moustafa, MOUSTAFA_8. You can email me at Moustafa, MOUSTAFA.Almeky, ALMEKY, at wilkes.edu. That's my school email. Feel free, honestly, to email me with any questions. I honestly don't mind. And if we talk, I'd be more than willing to give you my phone number. We can get in depth because I know, again, go back to Morgan Fuller. Me and him had a very, very deep conversation about something like this as well. And I was very happy that it's amazing to me that people are interested, and I'm more than happy to pass as much information on as I possibly can. So those are 2 main things. My Twitter is the same as my Instagram. And if you want to follow me on Snapchat just to talk, my Snapchat is Stafa8, STAFA8. So hope to hear from you guys. I was really, really happy to come on.
Thanks, man. I'm glad you came on. And I wanted to acknowledge you just for having that open-minded conversation, and also just for who you are as a person. I am so privileged to have been able to have you as a best friend these past couple years.
Honestly, and me as well. And I say this to everyone that watches Inside of All Trades regularly. You guys are really lucky. For those of you who don't know Cole personally, I would highly, highly recommend it. Someone who I've always had, honestly, like I've always had high aspirations for myself, but to see someone, because we're talking about religion, this is kind of a play on words, but religiously work on their goals like this man, I've never seen that before, and it made me realize how little I was really doing, like compared to what I could be doing. There's so much, your opportunities are literally infinite, limitless. Are you really, like, the class is so hard, but is it really that hard? I've literally questioned myself and looked back and been disappointed in myself because of looking at, I'm like, did I really do, like, if I had read the book all the way through, if I had really put in all that time, would I have gotten that bad grade?
Dude, and if you want to go really deep on this, not to go off on another full tangent. Actually, you know what? I don't even care. If you want me to go like super deep and vulnerable on this, so many times when I like don't want to study or something, or I feel like I know that I could have went harder on that sprint or whatever it is, I literally start thinking to myself like, dude, you've built this identity around working towards your goals, and all of your friends, your family commend you for being this crazy hard worker. You're being such a fraud right now. Yeah. Like you're such a freaking fake by not like giving your full effort. Dude, it is insane, these maniacal conversations I have with myself. Yourself. Like sitting at my desk, I'm like, dude, like people are going to think, rightfully so, you're a freaking fraud for
not doing this.
Yeah.
And like definitely not at that level, but I think we're both crazy because I think like that too. Like, I swear to God, like, if I'm not going all the way, or we're in practice, and I start falling into like a habit of maybe coming close to dogging it, I'm like, this is literally what you are telling the rest of your teammates they are doing wrong. Oop.
That pesky light went on again.
This is literally what you're doing. You're telling your teammates that they're doing wrong, and you're about to do the same thing. Like, are you serious right now? Your number one belief system is work as hard as you can, outwork everybody, and you're about to do this right now. And like, and you're just like, what are you doing? Dude. Like, these conversations in my head that are just like, are you serious right now? And it's like, so much outside pressure, but it's so like it's good for you. Like
it is, and it goes back. I think this might be like the deepest I can even go in this. I was having this conversation the other day where it's like sometimes what is driving me, like I would say maybe 85% of the time what's driving me to like put in that crazy work is nothing but what people would think of as like this pure, genuine, kind motive, which means a lot to me. The motive of I'm grateful for this life God has given me. I want to make the most of it. It goes back to like, oh, I'm right with God, and I'm just trying to like maximize this out now because I'm like grateful for it. And I just want to like inspire everyone else to recognize and pursue their potential. But sometimes, dude, that's not the inspiration that gets me to do the study. Sometimes that 15% of the time, I have to dip into that gritty darkness, if you will, of like, dude, you are a freaking fraud, and like you are like, how do you think you're? I'm like having this self conversation. Where I'm like, how are you going to achieve these goals, and how are you going to have anyone rightfully look up to you when you're just here dogging it right now, not actually putting the work in? Sometimes it takes going to that place and just getting super mad at yourself.
Yeah.
And it's not like...
I'm so glad you're crazy like me. I think a little bit more crazy, not gonna lie. But I am like, I totally hear that. Totally hear that. I'm 100% not at the level you are.
Don't see yourself a disservice, dude.
Honestly, like you guys don't even know. You have no idea.
This guy's a crack.
It could be $1 million in the middle of that. There's a greenway we're looking at right there. It could be $1 million right there. But Cole has that he's going to be studying for 10 more minutes. If $1 million are gone in 5 minutes, see $1 million because he has to study for 10. That's the level that it's at. Right? So that's just what we know. And I totally understand. And like, to everyone that's listening and watching, I'll use this word, encourage you to build a rapport for yourself. Go out and try and honestly reach past your limit. Go past what you think you can possibly do. Set your goals as high as you can. And when you build that rapport, go to this place that we're talking about where you're like, this is like, find your beliefs, your beliefs. And then when you start losing, or you start maybe just slipping off of your belief a little bit, go back to yourself and say, dude, these are your beliefs. What are you doing? Like, how are you not following this right now? Go to that place that we're talking about where it's like, this is what you believe in. You truly believe in this, and now you're not doing it. And you honestly will find success. Like, you need to be able to drive yourself. Like Cole was saying, you have these huge drivers, your big engines. God, your religion, what you care about, your goals, right? Just your moral humanity. And then you have that like crazy side of you. You need a little bit of crazy.
It's not the popular thing to talk about, or the pretty aesthetically pleasing thing to talk about. What's the word I'm looking for? Like the life coaches thing to talk about, where it's like you just got to believe in yourself, and
you have to challenge yourself.
Like there's some parts to it where I almost wish it wasn't that way. But like sometimes you just have to get freaking ticked.
Listen, honestly, like, believe in yourself is awesome. That is great, and I'm not taking away from anyone that preaches that or does that, because I think
the majority of the time that's what should be driving me. Is like that genuine, what can I do for the world? What can I do for God? I think that should be what's driving us the majority of the time. But there is times I think you have to use that
other, like, challenge yourself.
Yeah.
Get angry at yourself. Like, if you start defending yourself too much, you're going to get weaker and weaker. You cannot defend yourself. If someone is criticizing you, if a coach is criticizing you and you defend yourself, then you are uncoachable and you're going nowhere. I'm sorry, you're not improving that much. Take the criticism. And you know what? The first person to criticize you should be you, not anybody else. Should be you saying, you know what? I didn't work as hard. You should finish everything you did, studying, working out, practicing, whether it be for wrestling, football, basketball, whatever you do, right? Like, is that really all I could have done that practice? Is that really all I could have done during that match? If it is, then you're going to find that you're comfortable with the outcome. You can live with yourself, right? Until you get back off and you go and you hunt down the next goal. You can't live with yourself anymore until you reach that goal.
I agree, dude. Yeah. I think that's a great way to end this. Mustafa, I love you, dude.
Yeah, I love you too, man.
All right, everyone.
Thanks so much for having me, honestly.
Of course, man. All right, everyone. Adios. All right, everyone. Thank you all for tuning in. Please track us down on social media. Our Facebook is Insights of All Trades. Our Instagram is at Insights of All Trades. Our Twitter is at IOAT Podcast. And you can find us on Gmail. It is insightsofalltrades@gmail.com. So please just send us in your insights. It would mean a lot to us and a lot to everyone else. Meaning, send in any tips or tricks you've learned through your trade or your passion that you think everyone would benefit from knowing. So until next time, adios.